Start, there was a conference in New York sponsored by the Council for Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, since I represented the Philippines. And the rest of the world is going high-rise because it's very, very limited land resources. But we have so much air rights. In our country, still many local governments and developers, we only look at the land rights. We're not looking very well at the air rights. When I was with Ayala, I was the one who introduced floor area ratios. Before I was with Ayala, I was invited by the ruler of Dubai to be an architect urban planner for Dubai and bring Dubai from the fourth world to the first world in 15 years. And they succeeded in that. So maybe that was the first introduction to really growing global, bring cities into the first world in less than 15 years. But anyway, let's get started with somebody said, some of you said, you expect to have the macro, micro, and so on. So we have a wider context of, in 1 hour, 60 inhabitants migrate to Manila. And 47 persons per hour in Delhi, 21 persons per hour in Lagos, 12 new inhabitants per hour in London, 9 in New York, 2 newcomers in Paris, -6 in Moscow. This study was done when I was in Harvard, year 2000. So Metro Manila is the fastest growing metropolis in the world, primarily through in-migration. And we'll tell you later why. And growing carbon emissions, these are the different carbon emissions per city. Next slide. And key issues we have to address. We have to address the high poverty index, rise of mega cities, rapid urban population growth, environmental degradation, and inadequate basic services. The source is ADB. So tomorrow's success will depend on how quickly government, business, and civil society will improve their collaboration today. And how to address the problems? We need more inclusionary zoning as opposed to exclusionary zoning. More democratic architecture, architecture for humanity, public-private partnership, and citizen participation. We have so many models of best practices: new urbanism, smart growth for cities, vertical urbanism, and so on. And more inclusive modes of transportation and zoning. Global trends and best practices. This one, that picture there is the High Line in New York. It was an abandoned elevated railway to reach the ports from the meat packing factories of New York. And they abandoned it, and private sector in New York, the citizens of New York, volunteered to take over it and made it into a linear park, pedestrian elevated walkway interconnecting the high-rise buildings in that part of New York. And $10 million to maintain it. They get contributions from the private sector, $30 million, and they keep improving it. And all the land values around it occur to interconnect with this elevated walkway. Next slide. So we were talking a while ago with Ike here. What's the difference between green cities, smart cities, livable cities, sustainable cities, and resilient cities? We can go down the list. Copenhagen, green cities, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Vancouver, London, Berlin, New York, Singapore, Helsinki, and Oslo. Only Singapore is from Southeast Asia. Smarter cities, number 1, Vienna, Toronto, Paris, New York, London, Tokyo, Berlin, Copenhagen, Hong Kong, and Barcelona. Livable cities, Melbourne, number 1, Vienna, Vancouver, Toronto, Adelaide, Calgary, Sydney, Helsinki, Perth, and Auckland. And you can see more Australian and Canadian cities here. Sustainable cities, Frankfurt, London, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, Seoul, Korea, Hong Kong, Madrid, and Singapore. Resilient cities, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Stockholm, Boston, Zurich, Washington, D.C., then Atlanta. Next slide. So, green urbanism is defined as seeking to reduce carbon footprints in communities and destinations by making them more walkable and bikeable. It ensures that the community achieves a balanced lifestyle where there is work, play, live, and worship. And these are the green urbanism. Is that too clear? Is it clear from there? So, based on climatic conditions and the site context, self-sufficient energy producer, zero waste city as close to ecosystem, closed urban water management and high water quality, maximizing the landscape, gardens, and biodiversities, eco-mobility and efficient low-impact public transport system, construction using regional materials and prefabricated systems, densification, higher density, and densification of existing districts, deep green building design and solar access, special concern for affordable housing and mixed use, local food supply and high food security, local food supply and food security, and urban governance, sustainable procurement methods, education and training, and in particular sustainability strategies. So these are the green urbanism, 15 core principles for green cities. Next slide. From the new green urbanism, this is the future of our cities. It's like back from the future. Our cities used to be like this before the automobile influenced the planning of our cities. So you shop and dine on the lower floors, you work on the middle floors, you live upstairs with public transit and wider sidewalks. Next slide. And investments for green cities, intelligent systems, low carbon transport, green industry complex, energy efficient buildings, city greening, green resilient infrastructure. And New York, the High Line, I told you about it, abandoned railroad, interconnecting the new tall buildings in New York now. This is the Hudson Yards. It's the largest development in North America right now, probably the world. And many of the investors here are the new rich from mainland China. And what makes it attractive is more than a mile of walkable high line and very accessible from transportation. The city planner of New York was telling us, we have learned about TODs, transport-oriented developments. They call it transit-engaged development. So every time there's a new development in New York, they make sure it's very accessible from public transit and from walking. And they try to discourage parking. And if I was just there in New York and we had dinner, and you know how much was the parking charge? $70. And 30 minutes is $12 per car. So, and then Central Park, New York, green conserved urban public parks. If you compare the city to a human body, the heart are the central business districts. The arteries are the roads and waterways. And the open spaces are the lungs of the city. So if you try to visualize this, our cities are very sick. It need a heart bypass or heart transplant and so on. Many of us getting sick because we don't have enough open spaces. Central Park, New York. Imagine Central Park, New York without the Central Park. And again, the lungs of the city. And principle of accessibility and amenity. When your real estate is very accessible, when your real estate is close to amenity like parks, playgrounds, and waterfront, it's much higher than value. And I think this is the reason why you cannot stop high-rise development around Rizal Park. No amount of regulation will you able to stop higher development. Urban planning principle, principle of accessibility and amenity. If you're beside a transportation hub, it's high value. You're beside the amenity area like open spaces and waterfront, it's much higher value. And it's proven. Rockwell Center, when we designed and planned it, we did not go 70% saleable. We went only 51% saleable. And from 8,000 per square meter, the first sale was 120,000 per square meter. I think the market now recognizes when you have more open spaces, it's higher in value. Even in, let's say, Makati, Ayala Avenue is 44 meters wide. Pasay Road is 20 meters wide. The land value in Ayala Avenue is probably 600,000 pesos per square meter. Pasay Road, maybe 200,000 per square meter. And people don't realize, because we're allowed to make 70% sellable, don't realize that if you give more open spaces, it's higher value appreciation. Next slide. So Vancouver, Canada, best green building policy, they have it. Next slide. And Stockholm, Sweden. Again, from industrial harbor area to modern, sustainable neighborhood. You can see here, go on, look at these pictures. Higher value, higher density along waterfront. And if you compare it back to our country, we have the third longest coastline in the world, longer than the USA. And yet, we treat our waterfront as back of the house, basurahan. Elsewhere in the world, they are high amenity value. Many of the projects were done in the Middle East. We create artificial waterfronts, artificial lakes and so on. Dubai only had 70 kilometers of waterfront, all sold out. Sheikh Mohammed decided to do the Palm Islands, artificial islands, just to add 2,000 kilometers more waterfront. I'm averaging projects all over the world. A waterfront value is 50% higher than inland real estate. Gulf Fairway lines is only 35% higher than standard land. I think one of the examples is Florida. That's why they really maximize their waterfront. Amsterdam, again, the canals of Amsterdam, it's just the waterfront value but also transportation. Helsinki, Finland. Next slide. Abu Dhabi, UAE. They're creating the first carbon neutral city in the world, designed by Norman Foster of England. And this is the first to be a carbon neutral city in the world. Next slide. In Abu Dhabi. So smart city is maybe how to define it quickly. Smart governance, smart mobility, smart environment, smart economy, smart living, hopefully smarter people. Smart city is one where an open government collaborates with engaged citizens to steward the city's assets for future generations. I was asking my colleagues at the American Planning Association, why did they call it smart growth or smart city? And that was early 1990s. And they were telling me because the Americans were doing dumb growth. Before the war, they were doing proper planning. After the war, Detroit, Michigan influenced planning all over the world. Car-oriented cities, automobile-centric cities. That's why we have all these traffic problems and pollution right now. And American cities are leading reforms because they realize it's a mistake. And I asked Andres Duani from Florida, and he said, why did the rest of the world copy the mistakes of America? And he said, because after the war, America won the Pacific War and the European War. So everybody thought everything that America was doing is the right thing to do. So everybody copied America, except the French and the Italians. And I asked why. Because the French and the Italians, they always were skeptical of the Americans. So if you like to see charming cities today, you go to Italy and France. Because they were not, the automobile did not impact on their cities. Next slide. So, Vienna and Austria, just like the more progressive cities in the world, they're converting their vehicular streets into walkable pedestrian streets. Next slide. And Barcelona, walkable community. This is the Las Ramblas in Barcelona. One of the longest walkways in the world I've ever seen. Las Ramblas, this used to be a drainage canal. They covered it and made it into a walkway. So from the first class, business class, economy class, social class, you can see everything here. From places of worship, hotels, shopping, dining, working. They're all along one pedestrian footway. Next slide. And River Seine in Paris. Daniel Burnham, the American architect planner, planned Manila in 1905. His inspirations were not an American city, Paris or Venice. River Seine, Paris, Pasig River, Manila. The Esteros of Manila, the canals of Venice, And Manila Bay, the Bay of Naples. While Americans were here, we're following the Daniel Burnham plan for Manila. He did Baguio in 1909 in Chicago. In Chicago until now, they're following the Daniel Burnham. Tokyo, Finance and Economic Development Award. Tokyo is just like very well connected neighborhoods, intertwined together by good connectivity. Next slide. So the Tokyo Bay and Hong Kong, China, Smart Energy City. You can see Hong Kong was in the smart cities or livable cities list. Hong Kong, if the rest of the world copy the residential densities of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is 70% open space. All the world's 7 billion population, we can all fit in the state of Texas. All the 7 billion. And I presented it in the Harvard Graduate School design, my calculations. And it really means that going vertical city, you'll be allowed to have more open spaces. 5 years ago, I spoke in Mumbai, India, the remaking of Mumbai. And we had strongly recommended that 32,000 buildings that are vulnerable to disasters be demolished and rebuilt with more open spaces a la Singapore or a la Chicago. India, I think their democracy is as chaotic as our democracy, but they have the political will to implement it. I'm told they're already following our recommendations. And sometimes, clients abroad listen to us more than our own country. So you can see Hong Kong. Next slide. Livable cities. You must be stable, address healthcare, environment, culture, education, and infrastructure. Next slide. So Melbourne, Australia is one of them. And Sydney, another. And Calgary, Canada. You can see their waterfronts. Toronto. And sustainable city, the sustainable city, it has generates energy management, water collection management, waste management, food supply, urban culture, public space, planning, engineering, architecture, and landscape, sustainable building materials, transportation planning, and mobility management. And the vertical horizontal integration of better planned city, integrating jobs, housing, infrastructure, development corridors, green spaces, and walkability, and towards sustainable community. We are in Makati Central Business District. And ganito tayo sa Makati. It's not true. Makati is how not to do it. I used to be head of planning and architecture of the Ayala Group. And I mentioned it to them when I joined them. Because planning is balance. The planning Makati is not balance. You have the Central Business District of Makati, concentration of jobs and economic activity, surrounded by low-density gated communities. So that the average employee of Makati Central Business District wastes about more than 1,000 hours a year in traffic. And if you have 40 years of economic life working in Makati, living 2 hours away, you would have wasted 48,000 man-hours in your economic life. So Makati is just like you have the Wall Street surrounded by Beverly Hills. So by design, the employees of Makati are priced out of the housing stock of Makati. And then by design also, like if you go to other business districts around the world, like New York, every 70 meters you have an access road. Makati and Ortigas Center, you have to drive around more than 2 kilometers of walls of the villages. And people complain about traffic. I strongly recommended that the villages should open up their roads during peak hours, even if people were forced to pay more on the stickers. And again, is Metro Manila sustainable? Not the way it is. 1975 to 1977, I was team leader for the Metropolitan Manila Transport Land Use and Development Project. And to pay back my scholarship from the United Nations at UP, so I was required to work for government. And in that study, we came out with different development strategies. But one of them was do-nothing scenario. That's what happened. And 1976, we were saying, do-nothing scenario, you will have all these problems today, flooding, traffic, and so on. Because government did nothing. Now do something, we had several alternative strategies. The backbone of transport should have been the light rail transit. We should have completed 8 LRT lines by 1992. 1984, we had one of the best LRTs in the world. Today, we have the worst. So are the airports and so on. So maybe let's move on and get back to that later. London, United Kingdom, renew, refit, and reconnect. Even Prince Charles was against tall buildings in London. But I think other cities in Europe, like Frankfurt, they started building high-rises. So London accommodated high-rises, provided they are within the urban context of the city. Like they identified the visual corridors that must be respected. So you can build tall, provided you don't block the Big Ben of Parliament, the cupola of St. Paul's Cathedral, the Tower of London. And the city planners of London, they even influenced the architecture that you can build taller, but don't block any of these important views. Like the tallest building in Europe now is the Shard. I don't know if it's here. They were asked to make it more pyramidal, and they can go taller, because if they make it squarish, it blocks the cupola of St. Paul's Cathedral. Again, apply it back here. The controversy on the tower near Rizal Park. Why do we make the law after the building is built? If the visual corridors, historical corridors, I'm sorry to say, in New York, the developers like Donald Trump and all these other guys, high-rise Silverstein, builder of the One World, the Ground Zero, they call the Historical Society of New York Hysterical Society, because they're always opposing building high-rise. But I think I'm a member of a Historical Society here. So blend the old and the new, high-rise and low-rise. What they do in London is the first 2 floors must have public access, even if you have to pay. And the highest floor must have a viewing deck for the public, even if you have to pay. So that the high-rise building is integrated into the neighborhood. It's not implanted forcefully. But all of these are done through planning and zoning, not after the building is built. So Berlin, Germany, in Berlin they changed the rules. The office district of Berlin, even if they have classic architecture, they are encouraged to put a penthouse above, and even with modern architecture like glass architecture on top of classic buildings, so that even at night there's population in the office district. Next slide. Bicycle. It's a very important mode of transportation. So Copenhagen, urban management and planning. The Scandinavian countries, their prime minister, they bicycle to work without sirens or cars following them. Next slide. So Singapore, water treatment facilities. This Marina Bay here, they collect all the treated water from Singapore, then recycle back as drinking water. Until now, I think they're importing water from Malaysia. But the building code to Singapore, rainwater harvesting and so on, they collect water. It's really water resources management. You apply this back to our country. During rainy season, we have too much water. Why don't we collect them and make them water supply during the dry season? Next slide. And Seoul, Korea. This used to be the ugliest part of Seoul, Korea. It had a skyway and street level road covering the creek. The mayor of Seoul, Korea, decided to remove the skyway, remove the road on top of the canal, open it up. It's one of the most visited places for people now in Seoul, Korea. So you can see the picture on the left below. It used to be a skyway and a road covering this creek. They removed all of them. And same thing happened in Boston. They used to have a skyway, and it divided the skyway the city away from the waterfront, and they announced it was a $34 billion mistake. So they removed the Skyway and make a linear park along it, and underground parking. Next slide. And where is this? This is Madrid, Spain. Again, you can see the importance of integrating together transportation and parks and pedestrian systems. Next slide. And resilient cities. New York resilient design after Hurricane Sandy. They also suffered from disasters, so there's again a design and political will to implement it. Chicago, USA. Chicago was planned by the same planner, Manila in 1909, Chicago, 1905, Manila, 10-year burn. So it went high-rise, a vertical city, and had many open spaces, and really respected the waterfront. Next slide. And Boston, USA. Boston, they have what they call Boston necklace. All the parts of Boston interconnected by walkable pathways and bicycle pathways. You can go around the Boston metropolitan area. And when I was in Harvard, we made a study comparing Boston metropolitan area and Los Angeles. Los Angeles had more obesity and heart attacks. In Boston, because you're forced to walk, they charge parking so high also, a lot of open spaces. It's a more healthy city. Just looking at my iPhone when I came back, when I was in Manhattan this past week, I walked 12,000 steps a day. In Makati, 2,000 steps. For healthy cities, we're supposed to walk 10,000 steps today to stay healthy. But how do you walk here? You might fall in an open manhole or get trapped because there's a blank wall beside you. So we should also plan for healthy cities. Next slide. Elevated walkways in Venice. Even if Venice is flooded, this St. Mark, San Marco, one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, they know where the flood lines are. So before the floods come in, they already installed elevated walkways. Why can't we do it here? We know all the flooded areas, and why can't we do elevated walkways? Next slide. Hiroshima, the worst devastated city during the past war, and Hiroshima today. This Hiroshima today. I met the mayor, and he was telling me the way he managed is transparency in his governance. Like there's like one share to the telecommunications. Anything you ask about Hiroshima, you just call that number. Next slide. And here is Poland, Warsaw, the second worst devastated city. This is Warsaw today, and how they were able to bounce back, to rebuild. And Manila was the third worst city. And look at Manila today, after the war. Next slide. So Dubai, something close to my heart, because we're working on Metro Plan Manila, the ruling class of Dubai. They saw my name in the World Bank report, so they invited me to work in Dubai. There were 20 of us from 14 countries. I was the youngest and the only Southeast Asian. And the ruler of Dubai gave us only 5 or 6 instructions. Number 1 was make Dubai a pace-setter city, the leading city in the Middle East and North Africa in 15 years. Number 2, design Dubai as if there's no oil. In 35 years, they would have no more oil, unlike Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and so on. The third was create a garden city out of the desert. We're bringing in garden soil from Pakistan, irrigation from Germany, flowers from Holland. Number 4 was I forgot the number 4. But one thing I liked very much was for every year of service, go around the world with your family and copy. That was my first exposure to benchmarking. So we went around the world to take lessons from. My colleagues, they went to the usual cities, London, Paris, New York. I told them, those cities took more than 100 years to join the first world. So I went to what I called instant cities. And what were these instant cities? San Francisco, go west young man, gold rush. So San Francisco from gold to construction boom camp, mining camp, trading post, education center, aerospace center, now information technology center. So it was able to evolve from gold to what it is today. Hong Kong, interviewed all people from Hong Kong. They told me that Hong Kong started with opium. Of course, I'm not encouraging us to go into opium. Then from opium, the manufacturing and textile making, migrants from running away from communist China, the contingent from Shanghai, they brought with them to Hong Kong manufacturing skills and garment making skills. So from opium to trading to garment industries, then tourism center, shopping center, regional center. So they were able to evolve from one resource to the other, although it did not start very well with opium. Then Singapore, I think Lee Kuan Yew just copied Hong Kong. And Singapore was kicked out from the Federation of Malaysia. They were kicked out because they were discriminating condescendingly on the Chinese, and they were lucky to have the Lee Kuan Yew, an honor graduate from Cambridge. So practically, it's Hong Kong policy plus more landscaping. And Lee Kuan Yew decreed that every tree you plant and grow for 5 years, it's tax deductible for 5 years. Because after 5 years, the tree can take care of itself. Look at our country, after the photo op, nobody takes care of the tree. Then Europe, Zurich and Geneva. How did it get started? Again, the political refugees of the two world wars. The French, the Italians, and Germans. They went to Zurich and Geneva. They brought with them chocolate making and watch making. From chocolate to watches to banking center, tourism center, regional center, and so on. So they were able to evolve from one resource to the other. So that I brought back to the conversation table in Dubai, because as the ruler said, 35 years there have no more oil. So when we were in Dubai, 1977, we're talking about the tallest buildings in the world, the largest airport, the largest seaport, the largest dry dock, and golf courses in the desert. So about 38 years ago, the rest of the world was laughing at us. And look at Dubai today. So from what it was 1960, this is the Dubai Creek. The rural Dubai borrowed money through Lloyd's of London with the master plan, dredged the creek and made it navigable. Next slide. These are artificial creeks now in Dubai. So this is Dubai today. They even have more landscaping than Metro Manila. The first 7-star hotel in the world, and so on. So this describes that all the cities in the world, more progressive ones, cities and countries that I visited, they have the Palm Islands, Dubai, and so on. And integrated energy strategy for 2030. And the tallest building in the world, Burj Khalifa, 828 meters. Some environmentalists, I'm also an environmental planner, are against tall buildings. And, you know, for me, it's more environment friendly. Because when you have this is a super tall building. There are 3 categories of tall building. Tall, mega tall, and super tall. Beyond 600 meters, super tall. Mega tall buildings from 300 to 600. And tall building is, I think, 20 stories and above, up to 300. So here, the top floor is tourism, the tourist belt. So you have the viewing deck and the hotels. Then next below is the residential district. Then the office district. Then the shopping, dining. They even have worshiping and entertainment. So even just collecting garbage, you may have to go around how many kilometers of roads just to collect your garbage if it was urban sprawl. How many kilometers for your roads and utilities. But here you have it only in one point. And one of the things that we discussed when we were in Dubai in the 70s was branding. Make Dubai as a brand. And the rulers of Dubai, they wanted Dubai to be the center of the world between Paris and London and Hong Kong and Shanghai. So that was the vision. So I'm telling my colleagues and friends and our staffers that the success formula of great cities in the world, of great countries, they only have 5 ingredients. Number 1, visionary leadership. Number 2, strong political will. Number 3, good planning. You must respect the benefit of good urban planning. Number 4, good design, like architecture, engineering. And then number 5, good governance. And be it Dubai or Shanghai or Singapore or the Scandinavian countries or Sydney and so on, or New York, they have that. vertical urbanization, people who live in compact cities also tend to live about 3 years longer than people who live in less compact cities. The gap is probably thanks to more driving, which means more fatal crashes, a higher body mass index, higher blood pressure, and more diabetes in less compact cities. A new report on metro density says straight, quality of life improves in compact cities. Next slide. So, Asia and the Middle East, tall building statistics. The tall buildings of the world have moved from North America to Asia. More skyscrapers now are being built in Asia. So, China, more than 1,000 new buildings. Japan, 189. Korea, 180. United Arab Emirates, 180. Singapore, 79 new buildings. Philippines, surprisingly, 59. We're number 6 in the world as of 2014. And Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Taiwan. So total of 2,071 buildings in the Asia and the Middle East. If you combine Asia and the Middle East, we have more. And then tall buildings around the world. You can see now that it has moved from North America into the Far East and the Middle East. Next slide. So by region, the tallest building now is the Burj Khalifa Dubai. Then the second tallest is in Mecca. The third one is in New York, the One World Trade Center. Taipei 101 is number 4. The Shanghai World Financial Center is number 5. Number 6 is in Hong Kong, International Commerce Center. Petronas number 7. Petronas 2 is number 7 as well. Seating Tower, then Willis Tower, the former Sears. You can see here that the tallest building happening now. Next slide. So we have here the two tallest buildings. The Burj Khalifa on the right, 828 meters building. And the one on the left is being built now in Saudi Arabia. It will be more than 1 kilometer. And two meetings ago in London last year, in the Council for Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, a survey was done among the participants. Architects, structural engineers, and elevator companies. We said we can now build 3-kilometer high buildings, 3,000 meters. But the mechanical engineers, electrical, plumbing, sanitary, and fire protection, they said, let's stop at 1 kilometer. They need more research. So these are the several tall buildings now in Saudi Arabia and Makkah. Next slide. And 101 Taipei. Shanghai World Financial Center in Shanghai. International Commerce Center in Hong Kong. The One World Trade Center. Last week I was invited to have our welcome cocktails in Tabovi. Petronas Tower, Nanjing, China, Chicago, the Sears Tower, and these are mega tall buildings is above 600 meters high, super tall 300 meters and above, and below that is just a tall building. And most of it is happening in Asia and the Middle East. Next slide. So we have this listing here. So Kingdom Tower in Jeddah will be number 1, projected more than 1 kilometer. Burj Khalifa in Dubai is 828 meters. Ping An Finance Center in China, number 3. Seoul Light Tower in Korea. Then Jakarta is building up a very tall building. Shanghai again, and China and Mecca. Next slide. So the tall buildings in the world, the ones in the US are, the rankings going down. The ones in Asia and the Middle East are being ranked higher. Next slide. So the Kingdom Tower in Saudi Arabia, the designer of this is my friend, Adrian Smith. He used to be the SOM. Next slide. And PI Center. Next slide. Next slide. So Jakarta. This will be the 4th tallest building in the world. It's being built now. So by 2020, Jakarta will be in the top 20. And Shanghai Tower is newly opened. If you go to Shanghai, look for it. Those 3 towers here are the tallest in China, in Shanghai. Next slide. Next slide. Next. So we are not in the top 20 till 2020. Unless somebody is planning something, keeping it a secret. So some revolutionary areas. I call them revolutionary because it's best practice in the world, but in our country, it's it's not yet accepted. Sometimes when I put forward recommendations, I'm being labeled as revolutionary or putting forward recommendations that are controversial, but actually it's already best practice elsewhere in the world. So the triple bottom line, some of you must be aware of it. People first or social equity, then planet, earth, or environment, then profit or economy. And sometimes some developers, they just focus on profit. And also government sometimes. Next slide. So for long-term growth and renewal, design on a human scale, making full use of urban services, providing transportation alternatives for efficient use of land resources, conserving landscapes, design really matters, and providing choices, and protecting environmental resources. Develop affordable mixed-use neighborhoods. So this is in New York. You know, elsewhere in the world, I don't know whether it's really acceptable in our country. Like in the state of Massachusetts, they have what they call anti-snub zoning. Bawal ang snabero. It really means inclusionary zoning. 20% of any development, new development must be affordable within the same development. And the ones that sold for open market housing, the profits made cross-subsidizes the 20%. When we were planning Ayala Labang, there are 7 districts in Ayala Labang. District 2 is employee housing. So the employee housing enjoy the same benefits as the ones in what they call the millionaires who there's a form of cross-subsidy. Unfortunately, it was never repeated again. And anti-snub zoning, it's Massachusetts. You can see there was never a social unrest in Boston compared to Los Angeles. So they try to balance that even the lower income groups could afford through pricing strategy. So like new project developments in Boston, you don't notice the 20% because the same high quality of construction and high quality of architecture and design. So there's a form of cross-subsidy through pricing. And what I found out, I did the research, in those developments, the affordable housing, the one buying are the grandparents who wants to be within walkable distance to their grandchildren because the parents are so busy with their careers and their businesses. Next slide. So San Francisco, USA, again, PARCS, very, very important, the lungs of the city. Next slide. Beautiful skyline. Mixed use and multi-use development. Until 25 years ago, our zoning did not have a mixed-use development as one of the zonings. So when we applied for Rockwell, applied for mixed-use development, they did not even have it in Makati. So it promotes pedestrianization, maximizing the land values for priority areas, promoting sharing of infrastructure, providing an attractive transition between land uses. Next slide. So Rockwell used to be a brownfield. It was a pollutant power plant. So there was environmental remediation, clean it up, and make it in a high-rise mixed-use development. 49% open space, and we made the Pasig River as a frontier of development. And integrating together places to live, shop and dine, learn and worship in a walkable community. When we were designing Rockwell, a survey was done. We Metro Manilans, we walk only 400 meters. Beyond that, we stop anywhere, tricycle, jeepney, bus, super-driven cars, and taxi. And one thing that we were not taught in architectural schools here is that there are 5 facades. We know about the front facade, the back facade, the left side, the right side. What's more important is the facade from the top. How buildings relate to each other, dialogue with each other, the open spaces in between. So this is the west block of Rockwell. Which, we master planned the whole of Rockwell and we're the architects for the first 5 towers. Next slide. So this is the 5th facade. The ground space linking together the different buildings. Next slide. Again, I started one of the principles in providing infrastructure when we were planning Dubai. Progressive, soft, and hard. We all know about the hard infrastructure. These are the roads and utilities. Progressive infrastructure. These are the international airports, international seaports, international schools, world-class hospitals, and so on. Soft infrastructure is very, very important. This is the ease of doing business. No corruption, no red tape, and so on. When I was in Dubai, the Rural Dubai instructed us. I was working for the Urban Planning Department. Permits must be approved in 1 day. And if you are a signatory of that permit and you have objection, you have a maximum fortnight, 2 weeks to justify your objection. If you cannot justify your objection, it's automatically approved. The ruler says what is good for business is good for Dubai. And you see Dubai today, for every citizen of Dubai, there are 10 jobs available. So there are non-expatriates for every citizen of Dubai. Compared to our country, it's too overregulated. So progressive, soft, and hard infrastructure. Next slide. So the different modes of transportation. We say inclusive growth, but if you look at our public transit, our transportation infrastructure, it's biased for the automobile. And somebody tells me, only 2% of Filipinos own cars. Why 100% are pedestrians? Once you leave your car, you're a pedestrian. They're not fixing the sidewalks. So the first one, transportation, is walking and bicycles, then the different kinds of public transit. The last one should be the automobile. Next slide. And pedestrian first, then bicycle, then public transit, then the private car. So it changed the question. 20th century, how many cars per lane per hour? 21st century is how many people per lane per hour? Before, until now, I think Department of Transport is still using the cars per lane per hour. Elsewhere in the world, after the OPEC oil crisis of 1973, they changed it to passengers per lane per hour. Next slide. So, Mayor Bloomberg closed down Times Square and Broadway and make it pedestrian. Until the other day, I was here 2 o'clock in the morning. I felt safe. And 180 languages in any given hour being spoken here at the Times Square. And I also lost my iPhone, Vanderbilt Street in New York. Somebody returned it. The doorman of Yale Club, he called me up and had my phone. I lost my phone at Ninoy International Airport. It disappeared while going through the X-ray machine because I just put it on top of my luggage. It never came out of the machine. Better than Tanimbara. Anyway, I lost my cell phone at Naya. Somebody returned my iPhone near the Grand Central in New York. Next slide. So, after 9/11, I went back to school, Harvard Graduate School Design. One of the special courses I took was Security by Design. And the experts were telling us, criminals are not scared of walls. Because you can throw a grenade, no witnesses. You can rape people inside, no witnesses. But criminals are scared of more eyes on the public realm. Or they're scared of windows because behind the windows a potential witness. And yet our security here, they want to build walls, walls, walls. Then we put graffiti, do not urinate here or something. And the rest of the world, they encourage more transparency and openness. We have the most beautiful landscape gardens in Forbes Park. But they're walled off. Only the housemates are enjoying it. Imagine if they remove all the walls of those beautiful gardens. Then it benefits the whole community, and there are more eyes overlooking the street, better than a security guard. The security guard goes to the toilet, you have no more security. I told that to Mayor Bayani of Marikina. They made it a law. No more solid walls beyond 1 meter. And their criminality went down. I told that to Governor Amy Marcos in Ilocos Norte. So she started with the Capitolio, remove all the walls, and all the universities, called it Sirig Walk or Narits Walk. We asked the universities to remove the walls, converted them into terraces. Now, Ilocos has more tourists than hotel rooms, more tourists than bottled water, more tourists than toilets. It's a pleasant problem to have, but here, Shibuya and Tokyo, 2,500 pedestrians during rush hour, 60 seconds for pedestrians, 60 seconds for car traffic. You walk the streets of Makati, observe the traffic signal lights. I think 80 seconds for cars, 10 seconds for pedestrians. If you are in high heels, you'll never make it. So it's not even gender sensitive. So you can, in Tokyo, 60-60. In versus London, Oxford Circus, London, 30 seconds for pedestrians, for every 90 seconds for car. And with the diagonal crossings possible. So even Makati is not walkable, not gender sensitive. Next slide. Activating spaces for greater safety for disabled persons, children, elderly, pregnant women, people of all types of physical abilities. And like the texture of the sidewalk, even if you are semi-blind or in a wheelchair, it reminds you are at the edge of the sidewalk. I served communion during the Pope Paul Francis visit in Luneta. And Luneta is not for the elderly, not for the disabled, it's not for women. The public toilets, the men's toilet may be 20-meter long queues. The women's toilet looks like 1 kilometer long. So again, it was gender sensitive. Next slide. And promote innovative and non-conventional solutions like electric ramps and so on. Solar-powered glow-in-the-dark paint to guide pedestrians and cyclists. That's in the Netherlands. New Jersey, creative street lighting. Next slide. This is Miami Beach soundscape, cultural playgrounds and so on. And this is in Holland. The transit points, bicycles. In many places in the world, it's more recent, until yesterday, 2 days ago. In New York, we have the Citibank bicycles. You can rent it and leave it in your destination. Rent a smart bike about the possibilities here. In Denver, next slide. Slow zones and shared zones in Paris. Roadsides of entrances and so on. Next slide. And 40 by car. You can see the occupancy in the road. 40 by bus and 40 people on the road. You can see the more efficient way of road space is bus and pedestrians or pedestrians only, not cars. Next slide. So 12 car share vehicles would eliminate demand for an estimated 28 to 154 cars in the area. So I have not invested in Uber, but I think Uber is one of the most popular, grab a taxi, call a taxi. And there's a property on sale in Pittsburgh in Philadelphia. No requirement for parking. They're testing it. And then the city planner of Boston was telling me, millennials now are not applying for driving license. They'd rather live and work in mixed-use development, walkable. My daughter Karima, who's an urban planner, is trained in Oxford, England. She doesn't own a car. She walks to the office. 9-minute walk from her apartment to her desk. And I think that's the trend. And Hong Kong, I think the requirement for parking is probably less than 10% of the requirement for parking in our country. Next slide. So Curitiba, Brazil, about 35, 40 years ago, they were lucky to have the mayor, James Lerner, who was an architect urban planner. He made Curitiba as one of the best examples of city planning in the world, like public transit. You pay one amount, go anywhere in the city, and you can see the level of the bus floor is the same level as the bus stop. Next slide. So Bogota, Colombia, they are very good mayor also. After his term, New York hired him as a transportation planner. And he said, forget his name, the indicator of first world city is when the rich people walk and use public transit. Not when you have the leaders with several cars. Yeah. So, what's the next slide? How many more slides to go? You want to have a break now or we'll continue? We're supposed to have a coffee break at 3 o'clock, but anyway, we continue. Transmilenio again in Bogota. public transit. So, in Zurich, ordinances aim at keeping streets pedestrian-friendly by reducing the number of private cars. No new parking spaces to be built unless the same number will be removed elsewhere in the city. Current number of parking spaces in Zurich is the same as during 1990s. So even our requirement for parking in condominiums should be reviewed. They're rather obsolete. Because if you provide more parking, you provide more roads, you attract more cars. So Portland, North America's #1 sustainable city. You can see here the street cross section, bicycle, pedestrian priority, the landscape, and so on. Next slide. So for the master plan communities we do in the Philippines, I asked that every car you own, you must plant 10 trees. It takes about 10 trees to recover the oxygen out of the carbon monoxide per car. And in the communities that we master plan, if your property is not that big to plant 10 trees per car, there are designated open spaces for tree planting, like along the creeks and so on. In Abu Dhabi or Dubai, I require 17 trees per car because they have much larger shopping utility vehicles. Beating the global warming like a boss. You can see Puerto Alegre Street in Brazil. Next slide. And the road cross sections that we always propose, a lot of times is not followed because of the other considerations. So 1/3 for people, 1/3 for cars, and 1/3 for green and landscaping. Try to relate this to EDSA corridor. EDSA corridor is everything for vehicle, nothing for pedestrians and bicycles. Next slide. So Remedios Street, I showed this to Mayor Era. We took pictures of the uglification of the city. And I showed him, I call it postcards on the future. And he approved it, but there's a problem of funding. So I told him, how come in Binondo, Chinatown, you don't have funding for urban renewal, but you have big funds for Miss Chinatown? So I don't know where our priorities are. Next slide. Draw people closer to nature. This is in Portland. Nature back to the city. Drawing people closer to nature. We did the tourism master plan for Ilocos Norte. And even the natural scenery like in Kapurpurawan rocks, even if you are in a wheelchair, you can go to it. Then the Poway Church, all the surrounding streets were blank walls. Then living in Ilocano, do not irritate here, do not throw your garbage here. So we asked the governor to convert these blank walls into boutiques and shops. And because tourists for Poway, it's a UNESCO cited landmark, people go there, tourists, take pictures, throw cigarette butts, they don't purchase anything. So I told the governor, you pick their pockets before they go. Let them shop and dine after they take photographs and throw away their cigarette butts. So it's now, if you go to Ilocos in Poway Church, it's a heritage. Then they're very nice view from here. The lighthouse. Then also the airport. Because the airport of Lawag is the nearest to the richest countries in Northeast Asia. Japan, Korea, Macau, Hong Kong, and China. Next slide. Greenbelt Makati is a good example also. Master plan. Mixed use. Florida. Luneta Park, Manila can be improved. The High Line in New York. Next slide. And parks and open spaces. WHO, 9 square meters per person. It's a URB, Philippines, 500 square meter per 1,000 person. And evacuation, 1 square meter per person. I've been saying this again and again. For every population, there must be 1 square meter for evacuation area. Because you say 1/3 of the population gets affected. In the evacuation area, you have at least 3.5 square meters per person. I called the alteration of government in the bunkhouses. I was scolded for saying that, but 1 year after the United Nations said the same thing, they were praised for saying it so. And in that evacuation area, you must have emergency food station, water station, emergency clinic, emergency helipad, emergency telecommunication center, emergency shelters, emergency parking for emergency vehicles, and place for recreation and worship. Benefits of open spaces and green spaces. You exercise longer if you like the view. Even if you didn't exercise more, an open green space still makes you healthier. Adequate space leads to greater productivity. Exercising in green open spaces fends off depression. And you can earn more money in spacious workplaces. You spend more time gossiping in a crowded workspace. Crowding leaves you deprived of shut-eye. Sleeping. Yeah. Pavements to Parks program. Bucket green spaces in San Francisco. Next slide. And recreating urban community. This is in Laguna in Sunway Laguna in Kuala Lumpur. This used to be an open pit mining. And see what it is today. I think there's even I forgot the name of the university from Australia located here. They have entertainment, dining, and so on. But it used to be a big excavation. Like when you enter the hotel, you enter level number 20. Level number 1 is down below. And you can actually, there's so much appreciation against mining. For me, you can do responsible mining and plan it what can happen afterwards. Next slide. And types of urban areas: metropolis, megalopolis, aerotropolis, airport-driven cities, agropolis, the farming city. And an average food item travels 1,300 to a mile, 1,500 miles from farm to plate. And I have to walk the talk. With urban agriculture, the average food items travel 0 to 100 miles from farm to plate. Everywhere I go, I ask for the local food. I used to like to eat imported red meat from Scotland or sables from Chile. Then my daughter computed my carbon footprint is very high. Ever since started this, everywhere I go, I ask for the local food. I used to fly first class. Now I fly economy class. Because first class, you consume more aviation gas. But if I get upgraded, it's not my fault anymore. Next slide. So your roof need not be your liability. It can be an asset. You can turn your roof into edible gardens or flower gardens. Next slide. And urban agriculture. This is in Cornwall, UK. These are within the cities. Idle properties inside the cities. Next slide. And agropolis, we try to like leisure farms in Batangas, then Doña Remedios Trinidad in Bulacan. Agro means in Latin, agro the farm, polis the city. I think it's a better approach to developing new cities in the world, in our country especially. Next slide. And the evolution of the cities, just like old cities like Manila, started during the agricultural age, sport cities, then railway-driven cities, industrial age, then freeway-driven cities, modern age, and airport-driven cities. So you can see the future of countries is the airports. Because it's the fastest way to connect to the rest of the world. Moving people and goods into the airport. In fact, in Amsterdam, what's the name of the airport? Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, the land values now around Schiphol Airport, it's higher than downtown Amsterdam. And Dubai, they're creating the largest airport in the world. They're creating an aerotropolis, airport city. Gateway cities, entryways to a country or region, interconnectivity of regions within a state or country, with broader context of sustainability through the focus of economic growth and tourism, big contribution to the need for zero carbon footprint, cities that meet the requirements of population, economic income, and have designated international airports that work for both international and local end users. Future two major gateway cities, the free port and the airport-driven city. Thank you, Chairman Dolalia. And thanks for coming back. Tempted to go away. Anyway, how are we doing? How many more slides? More than 100 more, para there's opportunity for conversation. And so, global gateway cities. So the important ingredients are what I mentioned, the progressive infrastructure as well. So entryways to a country or region, I'll repeat it. Interconnectivity of regions within the state or country. Broader context of sustainability to the focus of economic growth and tourism. Big contributor to the need for zero carbon footprint. City that meet the requirements of population, economic income, and have designated international airports that work for both international and local end users. Future two major gateway cities, the Freeport and the airport-driven city, or aerotropolis. And the worst airports in Asia. This was last year. Last year, the Philippines was number 8. Not yet number 1. So the worst is Nepal. I'm flying to Nepal on Saturday to do my Architecture for Humanity to help replan and rebuild Kathmandu. Yeah. Next slide. So best airports in the world: Singapore, Changi; Seoul, Incheon; Tokyo, Haneda; Taipei, Taiwan; Hong Kong; Munich, Helsinki, Vancouver; Kuala Lumpur, and Zurich. And Dubai, Jebel Ali Airport, they're building the largest airport in the world. A combined capacity of Heathrow, London, and Chicago here, Chicago. It's under construction now. And Global Gateway Logistics City, this is 180 hectares across Clark. We were lucky to have been commissioned by the Emir of Kuwait to master plan and do an urban design architectural concepts for this Global Gateway Logistics City. He committed $1 billion in this investment. When they added his name, Sheikh Saba, Global Gateway Logistics City, he added $2 billion more. That's probably the most expensive naming rights I ever came across. $3 billion, it will create 272,000 jobs. My next trip to Dubai on the 22nd, there's a request from me from funders in the Middle East. They have $10 billion allocated for the Philippines. And they're asking me to put together our projects. But it adds up only to $1.5 billion. So if you have projects for funding, you may want just give me the project outline and only 2.5% cost of money interest plus service fee. You can negotiate their service fee. So this one and Aerotropolis, the airport and the city. So Clark is ideally airport-driven city, because the Clark Airport is the largest land area for international airport in our country, more than 2,000 hectares, just the airport proper. Ninoy International Airport NAIA is only 600 hectares. For international airports now, you need at least 2,000 hectares. Next slide. And green architecture, developing to build in accordance with the present condition of the site, dealing with how structures can further relate to the natural environment and man-made environment. It aims to create buildings that have minimal impact on human health and the natural environment. Green buildings, utilizing less resources, generating less water, reducing pollution to the environment, preserving greenery and waterways and natural heritage. This was our design competition winning entry for the proposed mixed-use development for DPP and Fort Bonifacio. The next slide. 2030 challenge. I was probably the first and only Filipino who signed up here in our company. By 2030, zero net energy, buildings by the year 2030, carbon neutral by 2030. We self-monitor our results. 12 sustainable design development, green urbanism, green architecture, engineering, interior technology, green energy, green infrastructure, furniture manufacturing, transportation, green jobs. Hopefully we'll have green sustainable development. And rest century. My professors in Harvard used to tell us, this century will be a rest century. Reimagine, replan, re-architecture, redesign, re-engineer, redevelop, renew, reduce, reuse, recycle. Hopefully we'll have urban renaissance. The Bosco Verticale in Milan, Italy. I met the architects of this from Milan. I met them in New York 2 weeks ago, last week, making a vertical agriculture in garden out of their buildings. Next slide. And Bahrain World Trade Center. They have a windmill to create energy between the two buildings. Next slide. Indoor environmental quality, dealing with human comfort like the thermal levels, acoustics and views, addressing glare control, cooling systems control, illumination control, good indoor acoustics, good indoor air quality, no smoking policy, 10 meters from entrances, microbial contamination prevention, and low VOC environment. Next slide. Embodied energy. 75% of the development is an area which was previously used for industrial, commercial, domestic applications the last 50 years. Rockwell is would apply to this. Next slide. London Marriott Hotel. This used to be the City Hall of London. They converted it into a hotel. I think I took the pictures myself here. So it's adaptive reuse. All over the world now, instead of demolishing buildings, they adapt it for reuse. Not many people in our country, they like demolishing buildings. When you build a new building, the carbon transport of materials, it's about 5% of carbon footprint. So when you demolish the building, that's another 5%. Then when you build a new building, that's another 5%. So it's better to, like the Empire State Building, it was designed for 100 years. It just celebrated its 100 years. So they have retrofitted it for the next 100 years. And so even green architecture, I tell my clients, it's easier to convince clients abroad because in our country, we always think of the initial cost. If you're a good architect, good designer, good builder, we should be designing buildings good for 100 years. So you spend a little bit more in the first 3 to 5 years, designing it properly, building it properly. So the first 3 to 5 years is cost, but the next 95 to 97 years is savings. So we should look at the life cycle cost of the building. And unfortunately, when we put forward proposals like this, some, hindi naman lahat, it's not all, will say, oh, never mind the initial cost. Never mind the energy consumption. We'll charge it to the tenants. We'll charge it to the consumers. So it's so short-term and opportunistic. It's not long-term and visionary. So the London Marriott Hotel, Singapore, this was Fullerton, used to be a post office. Now it's a hotel. I stayed in one of the rooms, and unfortunately, I was put in the parapet. So the window was 1 foot below and above that. Because they changed the floor levels. So I was supposed to have a room with the view of the river, so there was no view anymore. But they were able to convert it successfully. Next slide. Height and Heritage in Boston. You can see it here, there's a heritage building and reflected by a blue glass. So the building looks bigger. The blue glass skyscraper was designed by IMP. So to satisfy the objection, address the objections of the historical society, the IMP was able to demonstrate you can visually enlarge the landmark building with a blue glass that mirrors the building. Maybe they should have done that on the Rizal Monument. And here again, the Shark. It's a Leadenhall building in London. The nickname is the Shark. You can see there, on the right, the city planning of London, they encouraged it to make more pyramid, not to block the cupola of St. Paul's Cathedral. In fact, they were encouraged to build it higher and make it a pyramid. Instead of squares, you block the view. And the first 2 or 3 floors is for public use. Dining, entertainment, maybe a library. And the top floor, public access also. And understand from the developer, the building was bought by Qatar. And the hotel that we go there, the mixed use, is bought by Shangri-La. And I've been there, been invited to in one of the receptions there. And the developer was telling us all the challenges. So So they slowed this response not to block the views from St. Paul's Cathedral in St. Andrew under Shaft Church. So there's church also below. So the height of the church practically the same level for public use for the building. Next slide. And this is the tallest building in Europe now. The nickname of the building is the Shore. Next slide. So these are the visual corridors, protected vistas as of March 2012. So when you apply for a building permit, they tell you which are the views not to be blocked. Then they even adjust you can go taller, change the shape of the building, don't block the view. Next slide. And this one again, also in London, there's a little church below. So you can see, even this skyscraper now are the better known landmarks now of London. So height and heritage, tall building. This is Holy Ghost Church in Denver, Colorado. I took this picture myself. I was told by the parishioners, the skyscraper developer wanted to buy the church. The parishioners refused to sell. So they sold the churchyard, but the height of the church, there must be no floors. So this is like a high-rise buildings on stilts, so that the worshippers can spill over beneath the skyscraper, or in case of emergencies, the ambulances, fire trucks can go underneath. So you can see it here. You can mix building height and heritage buildings. Next slide. So transfer development rights. When I joined Ireland in 1983, most of the buildings in Makati were low. I described them as low, fat, and squat. It was maximum height number of meters, about 7 to 8 stories. So the bulky buildings, I introduced what's being concerned about plot ratios or floor area ratios. And then in 1990, they changed because the land values went up so rapidly after 1986. So I was testifying against the violators, which is not a pleasant job to do. I recommended to my boss, Nayala, let's have development, transfer development rights. You can sell your air rights. Now in Makati, people are selling their air rights. Let's say if you don't want to go any higher, you can sell your air rights, transfer it. If you are familiar with Fifth Avenue, New York, the tallest building is the Trump Tower. I think Donald Trump bought the air rights of St. Patrick's Cathedral. The St. Patrick's Cathedral cannot go any higher. So all these principles, we just finished the urban planning, master plan, land use and zoning for San Juan City. We use this principle. So San Juan, our plan there, our master plan there is Smart City of the Future. I was invited in Berlin. They standard our plan for San Juan as Smart City of the Future if they follow our plans. So land use, zoning, disaster preparedness, transportation and mobility, and tourism plan. So the first thing we did was overlay the hazard map of San Juan, areas liable to flooding and so on. In those areas, we have a different zoning, severability code. And San Juan, if they follow our plan, we'll have 3 levels of access. The street level, ground level access, elevated interconnected skywalks, walkways, so that even if it's flooded, you can still walk to work or to school. And then third level, interconnected monorail to be interconnected with MRT and MRT Aurora. I was surprised. The government Germany heard about our plan. I was invited to share our plan for San Juan in Berlin, talking about smart cities of the future to the Germans and Europeans. And we don't even have one smart city in our country. So here, transfer development rights. In Makati, it's happening already. So if you don't want to go in for San Juan to preserve their landmarks, we recommended that all the historical buildings in San Juan, they can sell their rights. And those opposing our proposal, Green Hills, I told them, if you don't want to go high-rise, you approve the plan, you can sell your air rights. I think after that, the land values have gone skyrocketing in San Juan because of you can sell air rights. So, Tunmas, Lumber, and Taipei, again, addressing hazards, so they have this pendulum in the top floors to balance the building in case of choice, because Taipei and Taiwan, the same earthquake zone as the Philippines. Earthquake zone number 4. The Philippines is the worst in the earthquake zone number 4, except Palawan. Except Palawan. when I started talking like this, all the land values in Palawan also went up. And we're doing also San Vicente, Palawan. Before we presented the plan, 500 pesos per square meter. After we presented the plan, 7,000 per square meter. We couldn't afford it anymore. So that's the downside of a good plan. So next slide. So this one is another architecture for humanity. There was a big earthquake in Bam, Iran. And we were invited by Chuchi, the master and founder from Taiwan. So we designed the schools with the old wind tower. So cross-ventilate from the tower and cross-ventilate from the side. The temperature goes down by 20 degrees in summer, 10 degrees in autumn. And we use the wind tower that they used to have in the Middle East, and we introduced a sloping roof because the funding came from the Far East. Next slide. Interconnected buildings, adaptive architecture in Singapore. The inspiration actually of this was the Twin Towers of Petronas. It's also disaster preparedness. If one building goes on fire, you can move to the next building. And then you don't have to use your elevator so often. Some complaints of my friends from Singapore is that the mother-in-law can visit them more often. Next slide. So, smart tunnel for Malaysia. I proposed this for, we have proposed since 1975, the Paranaque Spillway. 80,000 hectares of urban land gets flooded around Laguna Lake every year. We have put forward a solution since I was 25 years old. I'm already 65 years old. I'm still suffering from analysis paralysis. If the Malaysians can do a smart tunnel where the two levels are urban roads, the lowest level is a spillway. So when Laguna Lake gets overflows, you can pump the water towards Manila Bay. Until now, the proposal is being analyzed for the past 40 years. Next slide. So this is in the U.S. Typhoon Katrina, New Orleans. Even the house of Brad Pitt is like this in New Orleans. They have looked at the highest flood line and no livable spaces above it. So again, flood-proofing your house and so on, and floating houses. New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina. And if you look at it, our ancestors were ahead. Yung silong underneath our houses. I think our ancestors, they did adaptive architecture. Next slide. So, amphibious architecture, flood-proof architecture in the Netherlands, floating cities and communities. Next slide. This we did after Typhoon Ondoy. We put several proposals that adapting architecture. Because good news, in Metro Manila, there is now a master plan for drainage and flood control. Bad news, it will be finished in 2035. So we have proposed adaptive architecture. Never mind the flooding, just float your house or put it on stilts and interconnected it with elevated walkways. We colored the water wrongly. That's supposed to be flood. So when this was published, we got calls. They thought these were resorts. Next slide. So you can see, this is also in Iloilo. We were asked to do the planning of Iloilo also. How to raise the houses above the flood line. So I call that adaptive architecture. Yeah, because it's so expensive to wait for mitigation by public works, which may never happen. Next slide. This is one of our national shames, Smoky Mountain. So our two national shames are Pasig River, we put forward rehab master plan, and Smoky Mountain. If the government cleans the garbage there, I can get donation from our clients of about 3 billion pesos to create 6,000 dwelling units, green architecture. Next slide. So you can grow eggplant, mungo, tomatoes, cucumber, ampalaya, and so on the walls. This one is for the Estero de San Miguel in Malacanang, one of our patriotic architecture for the poor. Next slide. One of our design for schools in typhoon-stricken area. I got a call from Switzerland. They want to implement this in Kasiguran. And they want to fund it. Schools for especially the indigenous people of Kasiguran that were hit by the super typhoon. Next slide. And we have so many blessings in the Philippines. We're #1 in marine biodiversity. We're now #1 in voice call centers. We overtook India. We're #1 in sailors and seafarers. I'd like to believe we're #1 in musicians. I've been to 69 countries, and every country I go there are Filipino musicians. We're #2 in BPOs. We're also #2 in geothermal energy. We're number three, the third longest coastline in the world, longer than that of the USA. And I told you about Dubai, only have 2,000 kilometers. They have two man-made islands to add 2,000 kilometers more. Some countries, they go to war because they don't have waterfront, like Iraq, India, and Kuwait. And we're #4 in gold reserves. We're #4 in shipbuilding, #5 in all other mineral resources, #12 in human resources. They say the Filipino is the best global citizen of the world, unfortunately outside the Philippines. And the Philippines is 400 times the size of Singapore, 350 times the size of Hong Kong, 8 times the size of Taiwan, 3 times the size of South Korea. From the 1930s to the 1970s, we're #2 in Asia, second only to Japan. That's why the rest of Asia, they voted Manila as potentially the highest development potential as a financial center. We're competing against the South Iran who had so much money, and Japan, the biggest contributor. Japan agreed only provided the president of ADB will always be Japanese. And what happened? Corruption, criminality, and climate change not being addressed more effectively. And then if we address those 3 issues, we should be in the number 19th economy of the world. Corruption, criminality, and climate change. And what I learned about corruption, I spent 4 years of my life in the seminary. And the word corruption comes from 2 Latin words: cor, the heart, rapture, to break the heart. So we are a broken-hearted society. And if you believe in your faith, you fight corruption. It's a corporal works of mercy. Because the worst sufferers of corruption are the poorest of the poor. So if you're fighting corruption, you can get blessings, corporal works of mercy. And also, I learned in the seminary is that when you see something wrong, you don't report it. It's a sin of omission. That's why I have 61 million pesos in libel cases for allegedly maligning the good name of the Quran. Global and emerging cities is still the usual suspects in 2014. The best cities to invest: New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, Chicago, Beijing, Singapore, Washington, Brussels, Seoul, Toronto, Sydney, Madrid, Vienna, Moscow, Shanghai, Berlin, and Buenos Aires. Emerging cities outlook: Manila #2. As a potential, #1 Jakarta. But unfortunately, we're getting known in the world now are so many things: Miss Universe, Miss World, Miss International, and so on. We're also getting known now for Miss Opportunities. March 16, 15, 21. So on March 16, 2021, the Philippines will be 500 years old. The Philippines 2021 in development vision. Next slide. So, Philippine economy is poised at a unique juncture. Expected GDP growth 6 to 7% in the coming years. And visitor arrivals increasing. This was before the bullet, planting bullets. And visitor receipts. Next slide. And see how beautiful our country. This was our presentation in Honolulu. People are surprised. In fact, our country is nicer looking than some Pacific islands. San Vicente, Palawan just finished the master plan. Next slide. And see, this is our country. It's so blessed by the chief architect up there, chief planner up there. So blessed. You feel proud about our country. So much variety. You know, a survey was done in Japan. And it presented Mori, the biggest developer in Japan. They did the survey, and you know what the Japanese want? Diversity. But the Japanese are known for monoculture and so on. Diversity. That's what the Japanese one of their future cities. So here we have the diversity, mostly God-given. They say that we have the nicest natural beauty in people. And unfortunately, when I go to international conferences, when I show these, they tell me like, Junior, country is like a big ocean liner with a small engine. And Singapore is a small boat with a big engine. You interpret what their comments meant. Yeah. Intramuros, extramuros. It was good. Town planning was first introduced to us by the Spaniards. And this was for las Filipinas and Latin America. All our towns and cities should be planned in a similar way. Intramuros, inside the walls. It's good, at least every Sunday we have the town plaza, the church, and the city hall. Every Sunday we get together regardless of income class. The downside, extramuros, outside the walls. So intramuros, inside the walls, only the ilustrados and the principalia. The very rich and the connected. Extramuros, outside the walls, were the Indios, the peasants, and the sanglais. Try to visually analyze it. Look at our cities today. The town plaza is the central business district. Intramuros, inside the walls, inside the gated communities. And the peasants of today, the workers of today, the employees of today, extramuros, outside the walls. So the average employees of our business districts waste 1,000 to 2,000 hours a year in traffic. Because only the ilustrados and principalia of the day live close to the centers of commerce and trade. And for 500 years, if you look at the more progressive cities in the world, you never see 4 families per hectare close to Fifth Avenue, New York, close to Orchard Road, Singapore, or Hong Kong, in the middle of Paris and London. Only in the Philippines. London, they don't allow gated communities. In the American Planning Association, in 1998, we had a conference. The title of the conference was Revolutionary Ideas. I borrowed it for today. There was a presenter, he said, when you have a big house in the middle of a city, you have a larger environmental footprint because you are arrogating to yourself very prime urban land resources. You are preventing more families to live closer to their places of work. Yeah, so in the US, we're shaming big houses in the middle of the city. If you want to have a big house, you go to the suburbs. So the Kennedys, the Clintons, the Bloombergs, when they're in Manhattan, they live in an apartment. Their big houses are in Cape Cod, away from the city. Unfortunately, in our country, our leaders of business and industry and government, they want to have their big villas strangulating our central business districts. And we have to re-educate them. And I try to do that. Elsewhere in the world, we get respected for saying that. In our country, when I say that, instead of shaming them, they shame me. So some of them are friends, relatives, and clients. That's the challenge we have as urban planners. Daniel Bernhardt planned Manila 1905. As you see the road layout, similar to Paris and Venice and Washington, D.C. And he wanted wide boulevards, walkable city, mixed-use development, Pasig River, the rivers and the canals of Venice, the stairs of Manila, Manila Bayfront, like the Bay of Naples in Italy. Walkable, bikeable, connected. Next slide. And this was my term paper in Harvard again. The growth of Metro Manila from 1948 to 2020, even without planning, it's gonna happen. We'll have more than 20 million population by 2020, and Metro Manila, Calabarzon, and Central Luzon will integrate into one megalopolis. And the Philippines will have 54 million more Filipinos by 2050. So at 250,000 population per city, we need more than 200 new cities, unless we go high-rise. Or at 500,000 population per city, we need 100 cities more. Who among government is planning for that? That's only 35 years from now. And This is the map of the Philippines from satellite map at night. You can see Metro Manila is the only one lighted. Imperial Manila. The rest of the Philippines is forgotten. And that's why all this move for federalism or federalization, I support it. And my term paper in Harvard that address the issues, challenges of Metro Manila. We should create urban growth centers outside Metro Manila as counter magnets. And this Metro Manila, center of government, education, business, trade, commerce, military, education, and so on. Elsewhere in the world, there are federal governments like Federal Republic of Germany, United Arab Emirates, and so on. Even if you study in the provinces, you are not discriminated now. So, quality education and so on. Then, if the big one happens in Metro Manila, we'll need at least 10 years to rehabilitate. So, next slide. So, this is the Central Business District of Metro Manila. EDSA corridor was supposed to be a transportation corridor. What happened? The Central Business District emerged along EDSA corridor, surrounded by low-density gated military camps and gated low-density residential neighborhoods. And we wonder why EDSA is so much traffic. You fly a helicopter during peak hours, no traffic inside Camp Crame, no traffic inside Camp Aguinaldo, no traffic inside the villages. Supposing they just open up the roads, even during peak hours. And I think it will alleviate the situation. So nice in postcards, Makati skyline, Ortigas skyline, and Manila skyline. The postcard view from Makati. You can see the big imbalance. The daytime population of the Central Business District is 11 times the nighttime population. So we have the problem and challenge of bringing in the 11 times population in the morning and bringing them out in the evening. Because our transportation planning policy, they only look at the supply side of transportation. The cars, the buses, the trains. They don't look at the demand side. The demand side is the land use and density. You have Ortigas Center, Makati CBD, concentration of jobs and economic activity, surrounded by low-density housing. Next slide. So 1977, if you can get hold of a copy of this, it's a government, the Metro Plan Manila, Metro Manila Transport Land Use and Development Planning Project, of which I was senior planner and team leader. You can see on the right side, those shaded areas were liable to disasters. We knew it already in 1975-77. We knew where the fault line is, and the flood footprint from 1970 and compare it to Dondoy. Still the same problems. Next slide. So we told government that time that if you allow development to take place in areas that are vulnerable to disaster, you put first in place the necessary infrastructure. Urban development was allowed to take place, but they never put the necessary infrastructure. Like some parts of Manila were flooded in 1919. The government had that record, 19 meters high. How come they allowed only houses maximum 9 meters high when government knew it was flooded in 1919 by 19 meters high? And there are about 42 signatories for a permit here. 32 signatories for horizontal development, 12 signatories for a building permit. And these are 42 obstacle course for corruption. If you borrowed money, 1 billion pesos, the cost of money per day, cheaper to bribe than pay for the cost of money. I have a friend, I will not mention his name. Some of you might know him. He paid 4 million in permit fees. His receipt, 30,000 pesos. So that's 99% corruption. When I was a student activist, national with students, the corruption then was 5%. We were rallying in Menjola, 5% corruption to 7%. The building permit, 99% corruption. Anyway, sorry for the segue, but the human casualties, 7.2 earthquake magnitude. Death, 33,000, injured 130,000. The fire that will happen after the big earthquake, depending on the wind speed, about 20,000. So 50,000 people can get killed, and government knew that since 2014, 11 years ago. 7 bridges of Pasig River will collapse. They only had retrofitted Ayala Bridge. Guadalupe Bridge will definitely collapse. Metro Manila will divide into 4, east and west of the fault line, north and south of the Pasig River. And you can build 5 meters from the fault line. How come permits were given for buildings and houses on top of the fault line? Only in the Philippines. Next slide. The American Corps of Engineers, before they left in 1945, they had proposed that Metro Manila should have 6 circumferential roads and 10 radial roads. Until now, 70 years after, we have not seen the light of day for circumferential road number 6. And we complain about traffic. So 70 years from concept to implementation, not yet finished. Circumferential road number 4 was EDSA. Planned in 1945, built in 1954, about 54 meters wide. That's why it was called Highway 54. Next slide. And so the push and pull effect of Manila, instead of pulling people to migrate to Metro Manila, we can push them out and create load centers outside Metro Manila to pull them in, counter magnets to Metro Manila. So growth corridors in major urban centers. Next slide. And this is Guadalupe today. Next slide. And pedestrian fatality share of road accidents in Asian countries. We are again in the top 51%. Next slide. And democratic street diagram of driving through Metro Manila. Even those kind of signages, you never see these signages. I assure you, walang tawiran, nakakamatay. Then somebody say traffic is not fatal. Next slide. Ayala Station and Socorro. Theoretically, a walkable distance around the transit station, there should be higher density so that you have more people within walkable distance to the transit station. Again, the EDSA corridor is how not to make it, how not to do it. Because around our transit stations are gated communities and gated military camps. Next slide. And Ortigas, the same. Santolan, the same. And in fact, a lot of scholars now in urban planning, they come to Metro Manila how not to do it. And we get a lot of OJTs from around the world. They come to us to train best practices and worst practices. Next slide. So the existing situation in Jerry's Transit Station in San Juan today, a postcard from the future, how we can improve it through urban renewal. Next slide. And Annapolis Street today, the future with the monorail, elevated tramway. And I have proposed for the future 10 circumferential roads, including linking together Bataan and Cavite through a big bridge or a tunnel and put a wave breaker underneath to protect Manila from tsunamis and storm surges. And airports, we'll need 3 airports, not either Clark or Manila. We need both +1. Next slide. And this is the proposed tunnel, Manila Bay, linking Cavite and Bataan. Next slide. And we can interconnect the rest of the country. And so what train is the fastest train though? They came to see me. If we do this, you can link Apari to Holo in 2 hours, fast train. And I did this in 2005. I was invited to speak in New York in the 60th anniversary of the United Nations. I had proposed to link all the 6 continents of the world through tunnels, bridges, and railways. Immediate reaction was, this crazy Filipino, what's he talking about? The next day, they were congratulating me. They did a calculation. It's cheaper than the Gulf War. And I told them it's even more benefits because the gateway cities linking countries, you can create land values. That I learned in Dubai. You put in infrastructure to raise the land value. So we can interconnect the whole Philippines to railways, bridges, tunnels, and so on. It's doable. Next slide. And this, in between jobs, we take pictures of the uglification of our cities. And I send it to the mayors and call them postcards from the future. So, Estero de la Reina in Manila today, and Postcard from the Future. And Estero de San Miguel today, Postcard from the Future. Urban Renewal for the Urban Poor. And Estero de Paco today, and Postcard from the Future. Yeah, North Harbor Housing today, the future. Below Lambingan Bridge today, the future. And Escolta today, Postcard from the Future. Ermitaño Creek, San Juan today, the future. San Juan River today, panoramic view of the future, Postcard from the Future. Still in San Juan today, and the future. Molo Plaza in Iloilo today, and the future. Moro Arevalo Beach front in Iloilo today, and the future. Postcard from the future. Boston Waterfront Iloilo today, and the future. Ilocos Tourism Master Plan today. That's the city walk. We ask the universities to bring down their walls and interconnect them visually together. Create a pedestrian street. Next slide. And Pasig River today, Postcard from the Future. Makati on the left, the future of Rockwell, pedestrian bridges and ferry boats, linking together Manila Bay and Laguna Lake through the Pasig River. And we've talked to several mayors to reorient their buildings to face the river. Next slide. And development is not worthy of a name unless even elect bother in a place to brand. I wrote this in one of my term papers in UP in 1973. Next slide. So, Daniel Burnham, who planned Manila in Baguio, in Chicago. He wrote this around 1905. Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood. Make big plans. Aim high in hope and work. Remembering that a noble logical diagram, once recorded, will never die. When long after we're gone, will be a living thing, asserting itself with ever-growing insistence. Remember that our sons and daughters are going to do things that will stagger us. Let your watchword be order and beacon beauty. For God, country, and planet Earth. And I think we would like to live in environment-friendly cities and communities that are better connected, more accessible, more walkable, more bikeable, safer, better lighted, more convenient, cleaner, with mixed-income neighborhoods that are cross-generational, with mixed-use developments, integrating places to live, work, shop, and dine, learn and worship, with healthcare, recreation, and leisure, with some 24-hour cycle activity centers. And these are our two books. The one on the left sold out. The one on the right still available in the bookstores. And this is where we are, our company, 25 years, 38 countries, and 16 million square meters of land, 12 million square floor area. We do architecture, planning, interior design, and thank you very much.